Great insights, my dear friend. We've got a new collection for you, and a huge dose of fun is coming your way, God willing. One of the greatest skills you can possess in life is the art of human relations. This is a very powerful skill. Through it, you'll gain strong persuasion abilities, build a vast network of connections, and create influence for yourself. And you know what influence means, don't you, dear friend? We're talking about having contacts in various fields who can help you just by your asking for support or assistance. To acquire this skill, my dear friend, you need to understand all the personality types in this world. For example, imagine that the 8 billion people on Earth are divided into 4 groups or categories: red, yellow, green, and blue. Each of these groups, my dear, has specific traits and ways of interacting. This information comes from the book Surrounded by Idiots, and we're about to embark on a journey to summarize it in this video. We'll provide an overview and some simple details about each group and the people belonging to them, so we can start to understand how to deal with them and recognize the differences between us and them. So, the skill of human relations. Grab yourself a delicious cup of coffee, dear friend, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming clips, God willing. And don't forget to activate the bell to receive notifications as soon as the new episode is released. Now, let's dive into the details. My dear friend, welcome to the Bookish program. When the author of this book, Thomas Erikson, was 25 years old, he said, "I met a company president who was very difficult to deal with. He was so arrogant that employees put a lamp in front of the company door as a signal to know whether the president was in or not. Was the lamp on or off? If the lamp was on, it meant the manager was there, and whoever didn't want to meet him could withdraw and leave. But if the lamp was off, you could enter the building without worry and avoid meeting him. Dealing with such personalities is very difficult." Thomas says, "I had a simple conversation with this manager, and I asked him, 'How are things? How's the company doing? Is everything all right?' He replied, 'I am surrounded by idiots.' Of course, he meant idiots instead of fools. Then he divided them into groups. Group A are idiots. Group B are also idiots. And Group C are the worst of all. He also said that only a few of them deserve to stay with him in the company." Of course, this was said by the manager himself, my dear friend. What he meant was that anyone who disagreed with him was stupid. If you disagree with me, you are stupid. If you don't meet my expectations, you are an idiot. And if you don't understand me or what I have in mind, you are an imbecile. Then the author Thomas Erikson said, "I asked him a simple question. Well, who hired these idiots?" It was an innocent question, my dear friend, but he said that was the last question he asked because he was kicked out of the office afterward. The shocking thing, my dear, is that it's not just this company's president. Unfortunately, many of us believe the same idea, but haven't explicitly admitted it or fully realized it. We usually see anyone who doesn't understand us as difficult to deal with, and we always expect others to change to suit our style and expectations. But in reality, the opposite is true. As the saying goes, it's easier for you to change than to try to change others. When I read this in the book, I felt an inner peace, my dear friend. Honestly, as someone who cares a lot about changing the people I care about, like my brother, my dear friend, my neighbor, or anyone close to me, I want them to be at their best. So, naturally, a conflict arises between us because I feel I must fix every flaw in them. But this is actually wrong. Some things need to change, and some don't. They are part of your identity, of your essence as a human being. No sane person believes that the whole world must understand them. The smart person is the one who tries to understand the world. Thomas, in this book, divided the personality types in this universe, as I told you. There are 4 types, and he explained them in detail in his book. Today, I'll give you an overview that will be very useful, God willing. By the way, Thomas is a Swedish lecturer who gives over 200 lectures annually in Europe, and his focus is always on effective communication. And this, my friend, is one of the most important skills you need to develop, especially in university. Usually, when we start university, they try to help us build this skill by putting us in groups and doing projects together. They do their best to develop these skills because they are very important, and you will definitely need them in university. You will need them later after graduation, in your professional life, in your job and career, and you will also need them in your personal life, with your future spouse, and with your children too. It is a very important skill. Let's get to the point and start analyzing the 4 personality types in detail, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. They are divided into 4 categories. And if you're wondering where these 4 categories came from, they are based on a technique called DISC, which relies on 4 main measures or criteria. In short, D stands for dominance and I stands for influence. Then S means submission. And finally, analytical ability. This is one style. There's another style called DISC, which contains almost the same letters except for the letter C, which means compliance, or in Arabic, al-imtithal. Simply put, my dear friend, if the dominant trait of a person is dominance, or for example, if dominance constitutes most of their personality, they will be classified under this category. A person whose dominant trait is compliance will be classified under compliance, and so on. So, let's take the first personality or category, which is called the red personality. Of course, the color red, my dear friend, represents strong emotions. Emotions like love, passion, and anger are always represented by the color red. Even anger is symbolized by red. Red is also the color of blood, dominance, and control. It represents courage, strength, and danger. There is power in this color. That's why this personality is called the red personality, because you will always notice dominance, control, assertiveness, leadership, courage, and strength in it. You can see this clearly in famous historical leaders, such as the dictator Hitler, for example. The red personality has pros and cons. Dominance, trying to control things, and pushing decisions can be good in some ways and bad in others. Some people, including myself, previously thought these were negative traits until I realized that there must be people with these traits and personalities. Every group needs at least 1 or 2 people of this type, because not everyone is capable of making and executing decisions. Making decisions is very important in certain situations or places. So it's not always negative as you might hear. It can have strong positive aspects. I have experienced this personally. I previously had 2 managers. One was very friendly and kind, but unfortunately, this hurt us in the long run. We didn't realize the harm until after he left. Then a new manager with a strong personality came. This person always defended our rights before upper management and demanded improvements in our jobs, professional development, and so on. Only then did we see the real difference. Having a dominant leader, a red personality type, has pros and cons. Just imagine if the leader of your system was weak and not of this strong type. Can you imagine the disaster? A complete disaster, my friend. That's how things go. In general, the traits Thomas talks about are not necessarily found in every red personality or anyone who has these traits. Not everyone with these qualities is necessarily a red personality. This is the practical problem, my dear friend. But red personalities usually have these traits. You will notice that they tend to be arrogant, impatient, and sometimes a bit conceited, and they always like to be concise and hate long conversations. This is actually one of the main characteristics of red personalities. When you explain something to them, they don't want you to be lengthy. Just state the main points quickly. By the way, red personalities, according to Thomas, are very rare among the rarest personalities in the world. And true leaders are very few, which is very logical in reality. Well, then we now have a general idea about the red personality. Hey, what are you trying to say? I'll tell you there's a saying by Frederick. When we think deeply and intelligently, not only does the mind change, but the entire body begins to embody this intelligence. What this means is that if your personality contains certain traits, they will show in your body language and actions. For example, one of the main traits of the red personality is confidence. They walk confidently, like a king. They are also clear and serious. And when they shake your hand, their handshake is strong. It's clear they have a lot of energy. Their voice tone is usually high, and they don't stammer much. Their gaze is direct and focused, and they rarely smile. They never seem worried, and the writing is all direct commands without much narration. As I read these qualities, my dear friend, the first person who comes to mind is Jordan. This description applies to him perfectly. Sharp, clear, rarely smiles, always direct in his speech, doesn't stammer, and has a calm voice tone. All these qualities apply to him perfectly. But you will find that the strongest and clearest aspects of these traits are present in this person, Van Jordan. He is the one who came to my mind when I thought of the red personality. Tell me about a hard-hearted person if the answer is yes. Tell me who came to your mind in the comments. It doesn't have to be a famous person, even if it's your father, brother, or manager. By the way, Steve Jobs is one type of red personality. Let's conclude the discussion about the red personality with this simple study conducted by psychologist Daniele and his colleagues from Cinderella University. The study says that there is something special about the color red in competitions. It explains that when a player chooses to wear red, they unconsciously show their competitive nature. And this goes back to the links in our biological makeup. One of the biggest and most famous examples, my dear friend, of personalities who adopted red as a symbol or identity is Hitler, as I told you. And in the sciences of the Nazi state and dominant nature. Also, in sports, you will notice Bayern Munich from Germany, AC Milan from Italy, and Liverpool from England. These three teams have adopted red as their identity, and they are among the most successful teams in Europe in terms of titles. You will find that competitive spirit in one of the greatest sports legends, my dear friend, the legendary Michael Jordan of the Chicago Bulls. What a truly great personality. Now, let's move on to the yellow personality, which happens to be my favorite color, my friend. One of the prominent traits of the yellow personality is that they are open, social, full of energy and optimism, and this perfectly matches what the color yellow represents. Yellow is the color of the sun, the color of energy. This person loves to inspire and influence many people. And just like the sun, my dear friend, while it gives you energy, it can also burn you at the same time. The yellow personality is the same. It inspires you and influences you, but it can burn you with its disorganization. They don't care much about deadlines. They are very talkative, and they love to dominate conversations. Honestly, as I read these qualities, it also made me think if any character comes to your mind, write it in the comments. But certainly, Oprah Winfrey is considered a yellow personality. To know if the person you are dealing with is a yellow personality or not, as I said, focus on their behavior. You will find them full of emotions. When it comes to feelings and emotions, they overflow with them. And when it comes to talking, they don't stop because, as we said, this is their personality. They are very talkative and always smiling. They never stop. Thomas mentioned a small weakness they have. They tend to isolate themselves from others. One of their prominent traits is that they are full of energy. With these qualities, you can easily distinguish them. So if you, my dear friend, are a yellow personality, and you think that talking too much might push people away from you, well, you're right. Let me share with you one of the best rules I read in this book, the traffic light rule. It says there are three signals, right? Red, yellow, and green. Green means the start of your conversation. So you start talking at length without stopping. It says, after just 1 minute of your talking, the yellow light will come on, meaning you've tried to finish your talk or finish your point to stop. Then, after about a minute, the red light comes on, meaning you need to shut your mouth and start listening to the other person, giving them space to respond. Honestly, my friend, this is one of the best rules I've ever heard. Why? Because I'm one of the most talkative people. I really talk a lot. Since I read about this, I try as much as possible to control the way I talk, especially in conversations. Sometimes, in certain situations, the conversation is you talking and them just listening. People will listen to you if you are a teacher, giving a lecture, or an influencer, and so on. But sometimes, the type of meeting you have with a person or a group is different. Sometimes it's a dialogue, meaning the more you talk, the more you should listen and give the other person or people a chance to speak. This is a truly great rule to follow. Always remember the wise saying, a good speaker is a good listener. The more you listen, the better you become at having a conversation. Believe me, being a listener is much better than just being the talker. This is the psychology behind communication, for sure. Think of the green personality as the color of nature, my friend. Green is the color of life, safety, and stability. People with a green personality are friendly, stable, and very calm, just like nature. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule, and sometimes nature can be a bit wild. They have that side too. But in general, they love me, they help others, and they love to do good deeds. Most of the time, they are spontaneous and great listeners. Oh, yellow personalities. Pay attention. Erikson tells a story about a girl he coached who was a green personality type and an excellent listener. The strange thing was that she worked in sales. Erikson says that everyone around her was surprised that such a nice, friendly, and kind girl worked in such a field. The sales field requires a lot of talking, meetings, a strong persuasion style, and good communication skills. So what happened was really surprising. There was a very difficult to persuade executive, just like our friend at the beginning of the episode. His colleagues tried repeatedly to convince him to buy, but they all failed. Then she said, "I'll try." They told her, "This person is really difficult to persuade, and you are so gentle. We are the best speakers and have great presentation skills, and we couldn't persuade him. How will you do it when you are so calm?" She said, "I'll try. I have nothing to lose." So she went and sat with the executive and listened the whole time. What she was doing was just trusting her intuition. And what happened was a real miracle. She finally succeeded in persuading him to the deal just because she was a good listener. For me, this story is not surprising. That's why silence or listening, my dear friend, shows interest and leaves an impression on the receiver. The speaker pointed out a strange point Thomas mentioned about these types of people. He said that green personalities are so friendly that they hate criticizing people to their faces. So they always complain and grumble about others behind their backs. Then they say, "Our problem is that we realize these people have two faces. One they show us, and the other they speak ill of us behind our backs." Honestly, my friend, I am one of those people who truly believe this idea, unfortunately, because I was ignorant. But if I knew that this person didn't criticize me directly, just to avoid hurting my feelings, maybe I would see that they are actually friendly, and I would understand why they complained about me to someone else. Indeed, my dear friend, understanding people and how to deal with them is very important. I am sure that once I turn this idea over in my mind, my way of dealing with many people who act in the same way I used to think was bad treatment towards me will change. Thomas says, in order to recognize them, i.e., people with a red personality, you will notice these people, and you will see slight and simple smiles on their faces. And you know what? They actually prefer light, friendly communication from a distance. Now, I understand, my dear friend, if you want to win over a sensitive person, make them feel safe, stable, and calm. And try, as much as possible, to be consistent, not like a fiery, volatile person. Quick to change and moody, this is the green personality. You cannot talk to them normally. They need to be as stable as possible. So tell me, who comes to your mind when you think of a green personality? Honestly, no one has come to my mind yet. Now, let's move on to the blue personality. Blue is the color of water, clarity, coolness, and steadfastness. I really love this color, my dear friend. I love it very much because the blue personality gets all the attention. Blue lights, especially in our time, a time of thirst for fame, people just want to do anything to get likes, followers, and acceptance. And this reflects the true value. With all due regret, my friend, the honey-colored personality is actually the blue personality, not the other way around. That's why I love the blue personality. Thomas says it's an analytical personality, and I know someone in my life who truly fits this description. It's truly an analytical personality. And the blue personality matches all the traits I'm telling you about now. It's analytical and strives for perfection as much as possible. Everything in their life must be perfect time, organization, tasks, and so on. Naturally, because they are analytical and perfectionists, they must be precise. They also have a small circle of friends, carefully and selectively chosen. That is, if you are a blue personality, and by the way, I'll tell you something. You can actually be a mix of all 4 personality types. You don't have to be just one of these 4 groups. Usually, we all have a little bit of each personality, but in different proportions. For example, I might be 70% red, 20% yellow, and the rest divided between green and blue. In the end, there's a part of every personality in you. They say this: blue personality has a really strange trait. They share very little, even though they often outperform others. Like when you sit in a group, there might be a blue personality and you're talking about a certain topic. This blue personality might actually be the most knowledgeable person on that topic, but they are usually the least likely to jump into the conversation. This is somewhat strange. Personally, I think of my relative when I hear that, but I'm not sure which personality came to your mind. Share it. Don't forget, of course, Einstein is the classic blue personality, which I truly love. Bill Gates is also a blue personality. They tend to be calm, good at identifying problems, analyzing details, looking for solutions, very logical, and they put their feelings aside. The author, Erikson, tells a story about one of his friends when he visited someone's house one day. He says they were one of these blue type people. He said, "When he visited me, we had just finished renovating the kitchen ourselves, where we bought furniture and installed it all perfectly. Anyway, he said that as soon as he entered, he noticed the door and then told me, 'Tom, this door is crooked.' Then he said, 'Rebub, this cabinet is crooked,' even though it was really sturdy. This is just it. He puts emotions aside and notices every small detail." Thomas, the author of this book, says that if you notice a person who is very disciplined, even in their sitting posture, which is a sign of their blue personality, you will notice that they are always organized wherever they are, where they sit, where they work, where they sleep, always tidy and organized. Organized and messy, my dear friend. Don't confuse them. It is the opposite of the red personality. When you deal with a person like this, try to give them as many details as possible. Usually, if you don't provide details, they will ask, like, why is this happening? How did that happen? What's going on here? Who's involved? And so on. And when they do that, it doesn't mean they are interrogating you. I have met people who get annoyed by questions and say, "This person asked too many questions," as if they are interrogating me. But no, they are not interrogating you. They just want more details. As I said, my dear friend, we are all a mix and blend of these 4 types. The types are not always one thing. It is very rare to find a person who belongs entirely to only one type. Most of us are a mix of these 4 types. What is very important, my friend, is not just which color or type you think you belong to, but to understand the types of people you deal with and how to deal with them in the best possible way. And remember this, you won't be able to know someone's type quickly, not from just one glance or observation. It takes a lot of practice and training. By the way, Arabs call this skill ilm al-firasa, meaning it takes time to become really good at reading people. People always classify others as this color or that type, and so on. Remember, don't worry about whether people understand your classification or what your color is. Always focus on understanding their personalities, categories, and colors yourself. Now, the question is, which of the 4 types or 4 colors do you think I belong to, my dear friend? If you like this clip, share it with someone you care about, someone you think might benefit from it too. And don't forget to hit the bell so you get notifications as soon as the new episode is released. Thank you for listening, my wonderful friend, and thank you always for your priceless time. Peace be upon you.